Okay, so we do Chanukah Sameach. We do on the Parsha, right? Miketz. So Miketz is after the Parsha ends when Yosef actually in prison, right? And he's resolving the dream for the two Sarim, right? So then the Sarah Mashkim remember Yosef after 2 years, and Yosef was from the pit, was taken to Pharaoh, right? So you can also learn from that Yeshua salvation will come like really quickly, because they were hurrying him up. He didn't have time even to breathe. So this topic is Yosef Shalit hu mashbir lechol ha'maaretz. Yosef is the ruler, and he's the provider for the nation. Mm-hmm. So Yosef was the makor, was the source of the shefa, the wealth. Lashpia bracha la'olam, right? To bring the shefa, to bring the wealth, and to bring the blessing to the world. As it says in the holy books, that the 12 Shvatim, there are 12 combination of the Shem of Hashem, Yud Ke Vav Ke. And Yosef himself is also the combination of the Shem Havaya, right? Kesidro, like Yud, right? Shemishan Ushach Kol Shefa B'chad, that he brings, right? Because we learned that Yosef is the Midat HaYesod, the foundation, right? That's the main Midah, that bring the influence to the rest of the Midah, right? He says, in the Shabbat Ne'emar, I Mordechai.
Okay.
The Shabbat Ne'emar, right? So we said Yosef Shabbat. Yosef hu Shalit hu mashbir. Yosef is the ruler. So Yosef is bringing the shefa to the world.
Shefa is
wealth.
Wow.
Yeah, all the blessing. Right? And it says that Yosef is also like in the context of Shabbat, which means in the Zohar it says, Kol birchan del elav et atav yomash v'at eliyam. All the blessing from heaven and from this world are all dependent on Shabbat, because the Shabbat is the name, right, of the Shem Havaya. It is related to Hashem. In the Katuv, right, it says Yom HaShishi u'vachul HaShamayim. If you look at the letters, they will create the name of Hashem, Yud Ke Vav Ke. And Yosef is the ruler for the nation, right, and he's the provider of the nation. It says, after the 2 years, the extra 2 years that he was in prison, right? The Sham, right? Sam ketz lachoshev, that Hashem like end the darkness. Hashem gave a time for the world, how long the world is going to be in darkness, and when the darkness is going to be over. And that was happening after the 2 years. And what's the reason? Because as long as there is darkness in the world, right? There is ofel v'tzalmavet, there is death, hell, bad things in the world when there is darkness. Mm-hmm. And it says, Hashem gave the time, right, for Yosef, how many years he was going to be in the darkness. And now, when the dreams come, right? Chalam paro chalom.
How do we know it's 10 years?
The 10 years in prison, and then the extra years. Yeah, the extra years that he had.
So but how do we know it was supposed to be 10?
Supposed to be 10 years, yeah. This is what the Torah, the 10 years, but actually it was 12 years, plus the 2 years that.
Well, that I got. Yeah.
Zachartani v'izkartani, right? Okay, so he says, and therefore, nitkayem ketz sam lachosef. Miketz, it's from the end, when the end of the darkness. So there is no darkness and no death. What's the thing? It says also in Chazal that the Egyptian, they all knew what's going to happen, right? They all knew what went. Okay, Yosef was 10 years in prison and then extra 2 years, right? Mm-hmm. And then he came up to Pharaoh. He resolved the 2 dreams that he had. He said actually it's one dream. Hashem wanted to make it, so that's why he notified Pharaoh twice. So everybody knew what's going to happen with the 7 years of full of food and then 7 years of famine. Right? So the Egyptians, they also prepare all they stock food during these 7 good years. Right? They stock food. So, however, there was a klala, there was a curse that everything got rotten. Even the piece of bread on the table got rotten for the
Because they-
Egyptians.
they
Everything got rotten.
They had to give it to Yosef and they didn't.
No, the one that they didn't have to give it to Yosef. They were stacking food. Everybody was stacking food. Yosef didn't tell them, bring me the food. Everybody personally,
Oh,
feed
Oh,
his
right,
pantry,
right.
his treasure box, whatever, right? And
Okay.
he prepared food.
this was while he was gathering.
Seven good years. They just prepared food. But everything got rotten. Everything that they plant got rotten in the soil because there was a curse of everything should be rotten. And this is what Pharaoh told them. Lechol Yosef, go to Yosef, and he will tell you what to do. And Rashi explained that Yosef told them, if you want the food, you need to have a Brit Milah, circumcise yourself. And then they came back to Pharaoh and said, he's crazy. So Pharaoh replied to them, why didn't you stack food? And they said, we did stack food, but nothing lasts. Everything got rotten. He said, okay, you have no choice. He's telling you to do whatever he's telling you to do. You have to do it. Right? Okay. So now Paro is actually telling them that their life is actually depending on Yosef. And therefore, you better do what he's asking you to do. Otherwise, you will not have food and you will die. Very simple.
It's amazing that Pharaoh had this nevuah, I guess.
Yes. Yeah. And now it seems to be like the question is, why Yosef wanted the Egyptian to have circumcision, to have a Brit Milah? Did he want them to make Jews? No. Because Brit Milah by itself is not good enough, right? There is a process how to become a Jew. Somebody wants to, right? So therefore, then the question is actually what was the reason behind that? So he said, explanation. So the reason for everything to get rotten when they stacked food is because of the blemishes of Egypt, which was called Ervat Haaretz. It was the immorality thing that they had over there. And because of that, they had a curse. So the advice for that is to do a Brit Milah. And by doing that, the curse of everything to get rotten should get away. Because that was the blemish. It says, Rahman al-Islam, somebody just wasting his sperm for nothing. It said, and because of that, the person, what he is doing, everything will be getting rotten if he's doing what he's not supposed to. He said the same way in the Oshana Rabbah, in the Akafa Shishit, in the 6th time that we're circling, this is actually the Akafa Shishit is for Yosef, and this is for the Midat Yesod. And we are asking, Oshana Adama Me'arer, like save the land from the cursing. The Mame Mashkelet, like the cattle, the sheep, the cow should have a calf. The Goren Migezem, the Gal Midaleket, right? They're bringing here each type of harvest, and if it's a vineyard, so it should not get rotten, and the wheat, etc.
You said 6 times.
Yeah, the 6th Akafa. Yeah,
This
it's for Yosef.
7. That's a 7. There's
Yeah.
7.
Yeah, there are 7, but the 6th one is related to Yosef.
Yeah.
So he says.
Oh, the 6th.
The
one.
6th Akafa. Yeah.
The number 6.
Yeah.
Right.
The 6th one. Yeah.
Got
So he
it.
said Tikun Midazo. So fixing that midah of the Yesod, not wasting sperm, right? Bringing the blessing in all the gashmiut and the ruchaniut, in the materialistic thing and in the spiritual thing. And Yosef, he is the ruler, and he is the provider for the nation. So said his midah is the Yesod. So his midah is that he's the ruler, he's the one that influences, he's the one, he has the strength that the entire creation see the success and the good influence. He says, Ma'amar Ba'al Admor Ba'al Avraham, in the name of his father, when it says, Ve'itapak Yosef ve'omar simu lechem, when Yosef was holding himself and putting the bread, he says, by a Jew that holding himself from fulfilling his desire, then will get the influence of the lechem. Lechem is gashmiut, not literally bread. And also in Masechet Sukkah, it says, Masbio Raev, Marivo Sevea. If you're satisfying what you're not supposed to, then you will remain hungry. But if you leave him hungry without satisfying him, you will be satisfied.
If
Which
you
means-
leave him.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yes. Right. So he says when a Jew is surrendering and conquering his inclination, his desire, and he's holding himself back not to fulfill his desires, then he is like satisfied. And then he will have the influence coming down of the shefa, of the blessing. And that was the middle of Yosef. He was the ruler and he was the provider for the whole nation. And for Pharaoh, he actually knew this secret. And therefore he told him, no, you're in charge of everything in my house. Because I know that in your midah, you are the only one that can save. You're the superhero. Right? Superhero. And that's the explanation. That as long as the evil inclination in the world, there is darkness and bad things happening and death. And the person is not succeeding in his things because the evil inclination ruling. Because now he's under the darkness, right? In the other side. But if we are uprooting the evil inclination, then there is no darkness. In the same context of Yosef, this is what he did. Right? And he says here, he brings from the Maran Admor Babet Avraham, that in heaven, in Shamayim, there is a quota for how many pleasure a person should have. And also a quota for the suffering that the person should have. So if a person is fulfilling his desire and is enjoying it, so it is if like he took the pleasure from a place that he's not supposed to have. He took it from his desire.
It's almost like that scale. If you have too
Exactly.
much pleasure, you're like this.
Yeah, no,
Okay.
it's not too much pleasure. It's pleasure from his desires. He's not supposed to fulfill his desires.
Right.
So he's doing sin or whatever, and he's
Okay.
enjoying it.
Okay.
So in Shamayim, they said, oh, we already have a quota for you for pleasure coming from the right place, but
Right.
because you already had pleasure before, okay, we'll give it to somebody else. Right? He said, and this is bad. This is bad because the person by himself, he took the pleasure that you're not supposed to have. And when he's reaching into the gashmiut things, then he's not succeeding in anything. And also when he's being spiritual, he's trying to, then he doesn't see blessing in that, no bracha, because he already took his quota by himself from the desire, from the bad thing, from negative thing, and he didn't have now room for the positive ones, right? It's a cycle. It's a very vicious cycle.
It's not even a scale. You say it's like there's not even room.
Yeah. Right. It doesn't say it here, but it says in a different place that there was a prince, I think from the Baal Shem Tov, that the prince was supposed to be the king, and he saw him riding on his horse, very expensive, whatever horse, with his clothing and gold and everything. He was full of himself, so proud of himself and happy that he's going to be the king. The Baal Shem Tov said he's not going to be the king because he's getting now the pleasures
Right.
before he even became a king,
Right.
off like a king. So
Right.
said from Shamayim, that's it. They said, okay, he already had his good time. He doesn't need to have not to be king, right?
You act like a king and you're not king. Well,
Yeah.
that was your time.
So he said, but we cannot get this midah, this level, only when we are actually making end of to our body, and for the gashmiut, for the part against basically what he's saying here, wasting sperm for nothing. And then he would actually, he can control the evil inclination. And then he will have the pleasure that he was supposed to get from heaven and all his needs and everything. And that, he says, was the klipa of the Yevanim, right? So it is related. Miketz always related to Hanukkah. And the shell, the klipa, or the, let's say, the negative influence of the Greeks at the time that they ruled over Israel, right? As long as they were the ruler and let us do whatever we do, we had no issue with them. I think they ruled for like 100 and something years in Israel, the Greeks. But when they started to Shabbat, Milah, and Rosh Chodesh, then we had the fight because now we cannot serve Hashem. It doesn't matter who rule over us, we pay tax and everything, that's good, but not to let us fulfill our obligation to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, to Hashem, that's it.
That's what's happening now in the world. They're trying to take
Some
away
places,
Brit
yeah.
Milah and Shkita.
Yeah. So he said that was the clip of the Yevanim. they were like blinding our eyes, and they wanted to bring the Tuma into Israel. And that's why we became like blind spiritually, right? And the Hashmonaim, they gave their nefesh, right? They were fighting, I think, like 13 people eventually, right? Fighting the Greeks. And they uproot the evil inclination, the Sitva at the time. And this is again related to the same topic, because Hashem gave a quota also to the darkness, also for the negative thing that we see. Again, the whole life is a cycle. Sometimes we up, sometimes we down. But we need to remember that, even when we are down, that we're going to be up again and to keep the Torah and mitzvot. That's it.
Right.
That's it, right? And this is the light of the Hanukkah that is lighting for us. And this is the light of Hashem. That in each and every generation, we have that like the same light, but it's a new light. A new spiritual light coming to us. And these holy days are capable and helping us for the whole year that we should uproot the evil inclination. And when it's uproot from the world, then there is no darkness. And we'll have the light of Hashem.
Okay.
This is a nice part and a quick one.
So when you